The first man who gave my wife away did it because he thought he was being polite. We were in Napa for a weekend that had been sold to me as a reset. 12 years of marriage, 2 kids, too many rotating shifts, too many dinners eaten at different times, too many small things postponed because life was busy, and we were still young enough to believe busy meant healthy. Allison had booked a room at a boutique place off Silverado Trail, picked the restaurant, packed the overnight bags, and spent the drive up from Santa Rosa talking about how we needed this. She was good at that kind of thing. She knew how to make effort look effortless. At dinner on the second night while I was paying, I heard a male voice behind us say, "Allison, hey. I didn't know you were married." It was one of those moments that doesn't feel real until after it is over. I turned. The guy was maybe 40, maybe younger, the sort of clean-cut wine country version of handsome that depends on expensive denim and confidence. He had already realized he had stepped into the wrong scene. His face changed in real time. Allison's did too. She recovered first. "Oh my God," she said, laughing in that soft, friendly way that had gotten her through most of her life. "No, this is just embarrassing. We met through Poshmark because his sister bought a bundle from me, and he picked it up once. I haven't seen you in forever." That was a decent save if you didn't know how fast decent liars move. The man nodded too quickly. "Right, yeah, that's right. Sorry, totally my mistake." I shook his hand. He told me his name was Ben. His palm was damp. Allison touched my forearm as we walked out, like she wanted to keep me moving before I started thinking too hard. The gesture would have worked on a different man. It did not work on me. Before I tell you how I proved the rest of it, subscribe to Reddit Ride. It helps the channel grow, and it keeps stories like this coming. My name is Jerry Connors. I was 37 when that weekend split my marriage open. I worked as a security operations center administrator for a healthcare network based out of the Bay Area, which meant my days were built around logs, alerts, abnormal behavior, false positives, and the quiet discipline of not reacting too early. It was good work for a certain kind of mind. You learn to distrust emotion without becoming numb. You learn that people miss patterns because they keep searching for dramatic proof when the real answer is almost always hidden in repetition. Allison was 35. To most people, she looked like the best version of a wife from a small California town that kept telling itself it was still simple even while the homes got more expensive and the people got more polished. She was a stay-at-home mom who sold on Poshmark and Facebook Marketplace, sourced inventory from thrift stores and estate sales, knew every cashier at the UPS store by name, and had a way of talking to people that made them feel seen. Men liked being around her. Women trusted her quickly. School moms invited her into group texts within an hour of meeting her. Older relatives loved her because she remembered birthdays and sent the right kind of thank you note. From the outside, we looked busy but solid. I worked strange hours, sometimes nights, sometimes on call, sometimes half present at dinner because some fishing event in Sacramento had turned into a conference call. Allison kept the house moving. She handled field trips, dance recitals, dentist appointments, resale inventory, teacher gifts, and all the soft infrastructure that makes a family look easy from a distance. When people talked about us, they used words like dependable and good together. We had become one of those couples other people used to reassure themselves. That is why the moment in Napa landed the way it did. Not because a stranger said my wife's name, because he said it like a man who had known her in a context where I should not exist. I did not confront her that night. That surprises people when they hear this story. They expect either rage or denial. What I felt was something quieter and far more dangerous. I felt the first click of alignment, the way evidence starts to seed itself before the full picture is visible. Allison was too friendly the rest of the evening, too affectionate in the room, too careful about watching me without appearing to watch me. She asked if I wanted another drink. She rested her head against my shoulder. She kissed me before bed with a little too much intention, like she thought physical closeness might erase the shape of that moment in the restaurant. I lay awake beside her and let my mind do what it had been trained to do. Not accuse, not spiral, compare behavior, review context. evaluate anomalies. By the time we drove back to Santa Rosa the next afternoon, I was no longer asking myself whether something was wrong. I was asking how long it had been wrong and what kind of mistake she thought I was. Allison's weakness, I would later understand, was not that she was reckless. She was. She was socially gifted and practically intelligent. She could sell a used jacket in 12 minutes, charm a room full of grandparents, and make a neighbor confess half their life over iced coffee. What she was bad at was technology and the permanent, boring memory of systems. She understood people. She did not understand logs. That mattered because she ran most of her resale business from the kitchen desk on a shared MacBook. Not because I insisted on shared devices, but because it was easier for label printing, shipping confirmations, and school forms. She knew enough to delete texts. She knew enough not to leave obvious messages sitting in plain sight. She did not know enough to respect browser artifacts, sync settings, archived mail, and the kind of account hygiene people in my line of work notice without even trying. The first thing I checked wasn't her phone. It was the laptop. I waited until Tuesday afternoon, after she left for a sourcing trip she said would take her to Petaluma and back. Then I sat down at the kitchen desk, opened Chrome, and found that she was still logged into 2 of her personal Gmail accounts and 1 old Yahoo address she used for resale. I wasn't looking for love letters. I was looking for process. Process tells the truth faster. In less than 20 minutes, I found password resets from 2 dating apps sent to the Yahoo address, and then shoved into archive instead of trash. I found hotel confirmation emails opened and marked unread again. I found Google Maps searches for parking near small hotels in Rohnert Park, San Rafael, and Napa. I found calendar entries labeled inventory pickup that lined up too neatly with late returns and sudden babysitter requests. I found a folder in her email called shipping disputes that contained screenshots of men's profile pictures with first names only, saved without context. Even then, a part of me was still hoping for a smaller answer. Flirting, a separate emotional life, something ugly but singular. What ended that hope was not digital. It was physical. Allison kept her Poshmark supplies in the hall closet near the garage. Poly mailers, tissue paper, labels, thank you cards, a scale, packing tape, and a row of clear plastic bins with handwritten tabs on the front. On Thursday night, while she was upstairs helping our daughter with homework, I opened the 3rd bin because I had noticed it in the browser history twice, attached to search terms that made no sense for clothing inventory. Under a stack of branded tissue paper was a narrow black notebook the size of a passport. Inside was a handwritten log. Not names and phone, numbers in some obvious movie version format. That would have been too simple. It was first names, dates, cities, a few short descriptions, and symbols only the writer would understand on first read. Ben Napa, June Hotel Bar. Aaron SR after drop-off, no ring. M. Petaluma cash. Luis Novato, friend of Cara. Some entries had stars. Some had check marks. Some had nothing but a line through them. There were more names than I could process in a single sitting. It wasn't an affair. It was a system. I sat there on the closet floor with the notebook open across my knee and felt the deepest kind of humiliation, the cold, private kind that doesn't flare outward, because it is too busy rearranging your understanding of the past. One-night stands. Repeats with some men, maybe, but mostly opportunistic encounters fitted into school pickups, sourcing runs, resale meetups, girls' nights, and the 1,000 little windows of trust that hold a normal family together. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't go upstairs and drag her out of our bedroom by the wrist the way angry men do in bad stories. I put the notebook back exactly where I found it, closed the bin, and went outside to the patio because I needed air and because my kids were in the house. That was the first night I admitted to myself that my marriage might already be dead. The next 2 weeks confirmed it. I copied what I needed quietly. Screenshots of the archived confirmations. Exported browser history. Security alert emails showing logins from hotel Wi-Fi networks. Rideshare receipts she had forgotten existed because the confirmations went to the wrong inbox. I correlated timestamps with our Ring camera, the family calendar, shipping label print times, and the location metadata on photos she took of inventory finds while outsourcing. A blouse photographed in a thrift store mirror at 2:14. A hotel Wi-Fi login at 2:28. A rideshare receipt at 10:53 p.m. The lies were not random. They were layered. She had been building cover stories for months, maybe longer. Because this was my job, I built a timeline. Not because I wanted to obsess. Because structure is the only antidote to this kind of chaos. Once I had the timeline, emotion stopped being useful and facts took over. Thursdays that were supposedly girls' nights. Fridays that became late inventory drops. A Sunday afternoon she said she spent with her cousin in Windsor that lined up instead with a motel booking near Court Madera. A Tuesday in February when she told me she had a migraine and stayed in bed all morning, but her Gmail security logs showed a login from a coffee shop in Petaluma at 9:11. The most painful detail was how ordinary her lies were. Not brilliant, not cinematic, just steady. She used the softness of family life as camouflage. School pickups, shipping runs, donations, errands. She relied on the fact that good husbands don't interrogate the grocery store. What broke something final in me was realizing other people had been helping her, even if only by omission. Kara, one of her closest friends, appeared in the notebook once. Not as a man, obviously, but as a reference point. Luis Novato, friend of Kara. That sent me back through messages still synced on the MacBook. Allison had told Kara enough to ask for cover, though not always details. Can you say I was with you if Jerry asks? He's weirdly observant lately. Another exchange with her cousin Melissa was shorter and somehow worse. Delete this after. I'm serious. Friends knew more than they admitted. Maybe they didn't know everything. Maybe they didn't want to know everything. That distinction stopped mattering to me somewhere around the third hotel receipt. Allison noticed I changed before she understood why. She would have had to. Hurt changes the temperature of a man, even when he's trying to hide it. I became quieter, more precise. I stopped reaching for her automatically in the kitchen. I answered the right questions and nothing extra. When she put a hand on my shoulder, I didn't flinch, but I didn't soften either. One night while we were cleaning up after dinner, she asked, "Are you mad at me for something, or are you just stressed again?" The phrasing was perfect. Open enough to sound caring. Indirect enough to leave herself room. I kept drying dishes. Work's busy. She leaned against the counter watching me. You disappear when work gets busy. I looked at her then. And you disappear when what gets busy. Her face didn't collapse. That would have been easier. She only blinked, then smiled faintly like I had made a strange joke. You're tired, she said. You're doing that thing where you get cryptic. She kissed my cheek and walked away. That moment told me more than tears would have. She was still confident, still certain she could manage tone if she stayed ahead of specifics. Good socially, bad with tech. It was all right there. I began planning the exit around two priorities: protect the kids, and don't let her rewrite the story before I speak. Socially skilled people survive exposure by controlling sequence. They tell their version first. They cast the other person as cold, unstable, checked out, or impossible to please. By the time truth catches up, the room is emotionally occupied. I was not going to let that happen. The opportunity came by itself. Allison's parents hosted a big family gathering every summer in Windsor. Nothing fancy, just one of those sprawling backyard Saturdays where cousins drift in and out, coolers stay open, children cannonball into the pool, and adults pretend the family is simpler than it is. Her mother loved those afternoons because they let her believe she had kept everyone close. That year, the gathering also doubled as a welcome home dinner for Allison's younger brother, who had just moved back from Colorado with his wife and son. 3 days before it, Allison told me not to be distant or weird in front of everyone because her mom was already worried about us. That sentence did something calm and final inside me. How would she know to be worried? I asked. Allison shrugged without looking up from her phone. Because mothers notice things. In other words, she had started laying track. I spent Thursday night organizing a slim folder. Not graphic evidence. Not humiliation for sport. I printed enough to establish pattern without forcing the family to stare at anything obscene. A page of dated hotel confirmations, screenshots of the archived app resets, a copy of the timeline, 3 photos of the notebook pages, because the physical log mattered most. Her handwriting, her symbols, her system. I also included 1 printed screenshot of Kara's message, because I wanted at least one person in that room to understand exactly how much silence costs. Saturday afternoon arrived bright and windless, the kind of Sonoma County day people use in brochures. I drove separately because I told Allison I had to stop by the office first. I did not. I sat in a parking lot for 20 minutes and made sure my hands were steady. When I got to her parents' house, the backyard was already full. Her father was at the grill. Her mother was arranging salads no one had asked for. Her brother Darren had a beer in one hand and a story in progress. Kara was there too, which I had expected and still disliked. Allison moved through the yard in a white sundress, smiling, touching elbows, refilling drinks, looking exactly like the woman people would defend before they even knew what the question was. That was the point, of course. For the first hour, I said almost nothing. I helped move chairs. I talked to my son about baseball. I listened to my daughter tell her cousin a story about summer camp. Allison watched me twice with that low-grade alertness I had started to recognize. She knew I was off. She just did not know how off. The first person to press me was her mother. "Jerry," she said quietly near the drink table, "you've seemed somewhere else lately. If work is too much, you need to let Allison help you." It was so predictable it almost bored me. Before I could answer, Allison stepped in beside her and laid a hand on my arm. "He's just been under a lot of pressure," she said, smiling at both of us. "He shuts down when he gets overloaded." There it was. The first draft of the story. Reasonable wife. Stressed husband. Marriage strain explained by his distance. I said nothing, because I wanted the room fully furnished before I took it apart. A little later, Darren tried his own version. We were near the fence by the pool, while the kids played Marco Polo loud enough to cover half the conversation. He took a pull from his beer and said, "Man, whatever's going on, don't make my sister pay for your work stuff. She holds a lot together." I looked at him. "You think that's what this is?" He shrugged, already regretting the sentence but not enough to take it back. "I think everyone can see she's trying." That was the second defense. The third came from Kara, which was fitting. She cornered me near the side gate and gave me the look women use when they believe emotional confidence equals authority. "You need to talk to her instead of freezing her out," she said. "She loves you. Everyone can see she's trying. Everyone can see." That phrase stayed with me. By the time dinner was set out buffet style under the patio cover, I knew the moment had come. Not because I was angry, because the room had done exactly what I expected. They had all started defending the version of her that made them most comfortable. Allison was at the head of the table passing a bowl of pasta salad when her mother, trying to be helpful and making it worse, said, "Maybe after dinner we should all say something nice about family and fresh starts." Lord knows marriage gets hard. A few people laughed. Darren clinked his bottle against the table. Allison gave me a tight little smile that was supposed to mean, "Please behave." Instead, I set my fork down. "I actually have something to say," I said. The table quieted in the slow, uncertain way large family tables do when they sense a turn but don't know its shape yet. Allison's smile vanished first. I stood because I wanted them to remember the posture as much as the words. Not aggressive, not theatrical, just done. "I've listened all afternoon to people explain my marriage to me," I said. "I've heard that Allison is trying, that I'm distant, that work is the real problem, and that I owe her more grace than I've been showing. Before anyone says one more protective thing on her behalf, there's something you all deserve to understand." "Jerry," Allison said, too quickly, "not here." I took the folder from my chair and looked at her across the table. "You should have told them who you were before they started defending you." It was the only sharp line I used all day, and it landed exactly where I intended it to. Her mother stared at her. Darren frowned. Kara went still in a way that told me she already knew what was coming. I opened the folder and pulled out the first page. "This started in Napa," I said. A man named Ben recognized Allison at a restaurant and didn't know she was married. That by itself could have been awkward. It stopped being awkward when I came home and started finding hotel logins, archived confirmations, rideshare receipts, and a handwritten notebook she kept hidden in her shipping supplies. Allison stood up so fast her chair dragged. "Stop," I did not raise my voice. "No, I've done enough stopping for both of us." I held up one of the printed notebook pages. From where I stood, I could see her brother trying to focus on the handwriting, her father not understanding yet, her mother already beginning to. First names, dates, cities, little coded notes, enough to make the room feel colder, without me describing a single physical detail. "This is her log," I said. "Not an affair. Not one mistake. A pattern. Multiple men. Multiple meetings. Mostly arranged around sourcing trips, shipping runs, girls' nights, and errands." Her father said, "Jerry, maybe this isn't the place." But it was too late for maybe. Kara finally spoke. "Allison, tell me that's not what I think it is." Allison looked at her like betrayal had somehow changed directions. I set another sheet on the table in front of Darren. "You told me not to make your sister pay for my work stress," I said. "This is why I've been distant." He scanned the page, then looked at Allison, then back at the page. His face lost color so fast it was almost clinical. Her mother whispered, "Allison, what happened next was not chaos. That is one of the things I am proudest of." I did not scream. I did not dump evidence like confetti. I did not try to destroy her. I only made the room look directly at what it had been so eager to excuse without understanding. Allison tried 3 strategies in under a minute. Denial first. "You went through my things." Then minimization. "You don't know what any of that means." Then attack. "You've been gone for years even when you're in the house." None of it held because the evidence wasn't a feeling. It was a structure. Dates, accounts, logs, her own handwriting. When she reached for the folder, I pulled it back. "I'm not humiliating you for sport," I said. "I'm correcting the story." The sentence silenced even the people who still wanted to save her. Then Kara made it worse for herself. She said very softly, "I didn't know it was this many." Nobody spoke for a full second after that. It was the cleanest kind of truth, the accidental kind. Allison turned toward her with the look of someone who has just watched a wall collapse and expose wiring. Darren sat back in his chair and stared at Kara as if he had never seen her before. Her mother began crying without making a sound. That was the middle of it for me. Not the notebook, not the hotel logins, not even Napa. It was that one sentence from her friend. "I didn't know it was this many." Friends knew more than they admitted. Enough to help, enough to cover, enough to let me keep showing up to birthdays and soccer games and backyard dinners, believing I was still the only man being addressed as husband. Allison tried one last appeal by stepping toward me and dropping her voice. "Please, Jerry, please don't do this in front of the kids." I looked at our son and daughter across the yard. My sister had already moved them toward the pool house with the other children, because adults understand more from tone than content. They were not hearing details. They were seeing shape. That bothered me, but not enough to lie for her again. "I didn't," I said. "You did." Then I closed the folder. I told her parents the kids would stay with me that night. I told Darren he could call me tomorrow if he wanted to see the rest of the timeline. I told Kara not to text me about healing or complexity or how marriages are hard, because I had no use for women who confuse discretion with loyalty. Then I picked up my keys and walked out through the side gate. Nobody stopped me. The aftermath was quieter than people expect and uglier, in more durable ways. Allison did not come home that night. Her mother took her to a hotel in Petaluma, because apparently irony has no sense of timing. The next morning, she texted that she wanted to explain. I answered with one sentence about the kids' schedule and nothing else. By Monday, half her family had called me to apologize for what they had assumed, and the other half had called to say they were staying out of it, which is what cowards say when they want credit for neutrality after benefiting from a lie. Kara sent a long message that began with "I never meant to hurt you" and ended with "I thought it was one person." I deleted it halfway through. Allison's father came by the house on Wednesday to return a sweatshirt Our son had left in his truck. He stood on the porch for a minute longer than necessary and said, "I should have asked before I judged." I nodded. He looked older than he had the week before. Allison moved in with her mother for a while, and then into a small rental on the other side of town. The Poshmark business continued, though I heard from one of the other school parents that she stopped doing local pickups. Too many eyes. Too much memory. Social embarrassment is a strange consequence because it doesn't explode all at once. It lingers in carpools, in birthday invitations that arrive later or not at all, in people suddenly realizing they don't want their daughters using your name as an example of grown-up womanhood. I never chased revenge beyond the truth. No posts, no public speeches, no forwarded screenshots to the entire county. The family gathering had done what it needed to do. It had taken away her ability to keep me cast in the role she had written for me. After that, I focused on separation, parenting, the house, and the kind of administrative grief people never mention when they talk about betrayal. Password changes, account splits, calendar adjustments, school pickup rules, car insurance. The 1,000 little clerical cuts that prove a marriage is over more thoroughly than tears do. What surprised me was how fast anger burned out once confusion was gone. That does not mean I was fine. I was. There were nights I sat in the dark living room after the kids were asleep and replayed ordinary years in my head, wondering which parts had been real. A man can survive infidelity and still feel foolish for the ways he once trusted. I thought about early mornings when Allison handed me coffee before a shift, about the way she used to text me photos of the kids at the pumpkin patch, about the softness of her voice when she asked me to pick up takeout on the way home. The hardest part is not deciding whether the good years existed. It is realizing they existed and still did not protect you. If you've stayed with me this far, subscribe to Reddit Ride. It helps more than people think. The freedom came slowly. Not romantic freedom. Not the movie version where you buy better clothes and somebody new appears in a grocery store aisle as a reward for surviving pain. Mine was quieter. I stopped checking over my shoulder emotionally. I stopped waiting for a tone in her voice to tell me what kind of evening we were about to have. I stopped translating inconsistencies into innocent explanations, because family life trains decent men to preserve peace at their own expense. Once that reflex died, I felt lighter than I had in years. I also got cleaner in myself. I slept more. I ran in the mornings before the kids woke up. I cooked because the motion steadied me. At work, I noticed I was sharper, less distracted, less willing to let a low-grade anomaly sit unresolved in the corner of a dashboard because I was tired. Betrayal had made me tired for a long time before I had a name for it. After the name came exhaustion, yes, but then eventually clarity. Allison asked twice, months apart, whether I believed any part of us had been salvageable if I had confronted her privately instead of at that family table. The answer was no, though I did not phrase it that way. I told her the marriage ended before the gathering. The gathering only ended the lie. She cried when I said that, and I believed those tears were real. Allison was not a cartoon villain. She was a woman who liked being wanted, who learned she could partition her life, who used charm as a bridge over consequences until the bridge finally collapsed. I can understand someone and still never trust them again. Maturity is mostly learning the difference. By the time winter came around, the house felt like mine again. Not because her things were gone, though many were, because the air had changed. I could sit at the kitchen desk where I found the archived confirmations and the hidden system behind my back, and the room no longer felt contaminated. It just felt honest. Sometimes that is all freedom is. Not joy, not vindication. Honesty. The last time I saw her socially was at our daughter's school concert. We stood on opposite sides of the multi-purpose room while folding chairs scraped against the floor, and parents held up phones like shields. Allison looked beautiful in the way she always had. That part did not evaporate just because I knew the truth. But beauty without trust becomes purely visual. It no longer reaches inside you and rearranges your judgment. She caught my eye once and looked away first. That was enough. I drove home alone that night through cold Santa Rosa streets, with the heater running low, and the kind of calm in my chest I had spent months earning. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cheated by life. I felt exact. And for the first time in a very long time, exact was enough.